All right, perfect. Here we go. I think it's episode 5, and we have our Yankees GM Craig with us. I appreciate you taking the time, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you doing this. It's been fun to listen to everybody.
That's great, man. Yeah, I love the I love that people are like willing to do it and willing to take the time and listen. And I just, as I said a couple times, I just like the idea of any way we can, make the community stronger, and draw the interest in. And if we can learn something and you know teach something for some people, then it's like it's all good. And yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Um, so you kind of know some of the routine here, and we started chatting a little bit about I told you that I'm in Philly. How about you? Where you living these days? Where are you from?
So I'm originally from Michigan, just
Okay.
outside of Detroit. Was born and lived there for the first 12 years. And then my father took a job in Massachusetts. So we lived right outside of Boston for 6 years. And then as soon as I went to college, I wanted to get out of the Northeast. Was not a fan.
Yeah.
So I went 1 year to Ohio Wesleyan, played football and baseball there, which was
Okay.
both my parents' alma mater. And then tore my knee, getting ready for the baseball season, and didn't want to stay there for school. So actually was going to transfer to Arizona State.
Okay.
Uh,
All right.
had my deposit, had my classes, everything, and found out that my grandfather, who lived in Pinehurst, North Carolina, got cancer, and we were
Mm,
really close.
yeah.
So he bought me my first catcher's mitt, taught me the game of golf. So we were really close, and that's why I transferred down to South Carolina instead of Arizona State. So, long story short, I live in Spartanburg, South Carolina right now.
Okay.
And yeah, that's how I got down here.
All right. That's awesome. Did you go to Clemson? You're living near Clemson now. I only know of Spartansburg. I know I've driven around it, but I don't know the vicinity. But I thought you mentioned Clemson on our chat.
Yeah.
Trying to link up
So
here.
in my job, my territory goes to Clemson, which every time I go there, I want to puke because obviously that's our rival. So,
Right.
um, yes. So
That's
Clemson's
great.
my territory, but I'm probably an hour and a half from Clemson.
Okay. All right. I love hearing that. Our Reds GM Scott, we have been friends since like the middle fifth grade, and he went to school to Clemson, so he's always Clemsoned up, and everyone always shits all over him.
Okay.
So
Well, hey, 31-30, 31-30.
there you go. And it's funny because I have like no specific college affiliation, so I kind of stay out of it. But just for his misery, I'm always rooting against them anyway.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, we ended their like 3 year long home win streak. We ended their 26 game win streak, consecutive win streak, and then we lost or we won and beat finally Clemson for the first time in like 6 years. So
Okay. All right.
it
Yeah.
was this was a good year.
That's awesome. Yeah, hold on to it, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So you missed ASU, you missed that awesome Tempe area, but you're happy you stayed. You got to spend a little time with Grandpa while he was still around.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I spent probably 2 or 3 weekends out of a month and would go up there on the weekends and just kind of hang out with him and take him to the doctor's appointments on Monday if he needed me to.
Yeah.
Uh, Played some golf when he still was able to. So I'm glad I did it,
Yeah.
but
Can't get that time back, man.
can't get that time back. No.
Hmm.
But had I do it all over, I'd still do the same thing. But I really have um, ASU is in my heart.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
still an
Understandable.
ASU fan, still follow them. So
All right. All
it's
right.
that.
So a couple questions mixed in there. Who was Grandpa's team? Was it the Braves?
No, so he was from Pittsburgh.
Okay. All right. Pirates
Um,
fan. All right.
Pirates fan. My dad is from Pittsburgh, so
Okay.
Pirates were my first game I ever went to. Actually, at Three River Stadium with Andy Van Slyke, Bobby Bonilla,
Nice. Yeah. Yeah.
Barry
Yeah.
Bonds before he got bulked up. However way you want to say that.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and then Sid Bream. So it was it. I loved it. I loved Pittsburgh Pirates.
Yeah, that was. Well, I'm in the same era, and that team I enjoyed as well. Even though being a Phillies fan, I just love those guys, and I always rooted for Bonds anyway, no matter what. But
Yeah.
at all throughout his entire career. So okay, so Pirates fan, and then moving between Michigan and Boston and back down to South Carolina. Has any of that like changed? Are you like how about the rest of the sports? Are you kind of mixed in some of the stuff? Are you rooting
No,
for
so
Patriots or anything?
I don't.
Good.
Now my dad has season tickets to the Red Sox and Patriots, and my brother, who is 5.5 years older than me, is all New England. I'm
Okay.
all Detroit, so
You're
I'm
all Detroit.
I'm
Okay.
Pistons, Red Wings, Lions, as bad as they are usually,
Yeah.
and the Tigers. But then what I was also going to mention is where Arizona State came in was when we were living in Michigan and Massachusetts. Obviously, the winters are terrible, so on winter break for 12 straight years, we would go down to Arizona. And I was actually at the spring training their first year that they were around as a franchise.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's so I've been a Diamondbacks fan since they came into inception.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, it's
Yeah.
the Tigers and it's like the Suns, the Cardinals, Diamondbacks, and Coyotes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, that's interesting. So I always like to learn, who people are rooting for, and it's interesting. And I'm like such a weird sports fan. I have a couple favorites, but for a lot of them, I just kind of enjoy the game. But I know for Detroit fans, our Cubs GM Shane, who we had on to start the podcast experience, he's a big Tigers fan. And
Yep,
then I know Mike, our Arizona GM, he's all everything Michigan. And so yeah, so there's some common ground in there. And you dislike Clemson, so we're on a good start.
absolutely, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, that's cool if you get a chance to go up and visit your dad with the Red Sox option. I mean, that's obviously a great ballpark and great, historic team. And any chance you get to go there, I'm sure that's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. I'll send a picture. We were actually up there, or I was up there this past September, and we went to a game together. And I got a picture of him getting the ball and stuff.
Oh, that's
So
great, man. That's
I'll
awesome.
send that in the Slack.
Yeah, that'd be great. So, in a like a brief synopsis, how are they feeling about what the Red Sox have been doing the past year plus? Are they
Well, so
disenchanted or?
yeah, he's always doomsday.
Okay,
So
gotcha. Yeah.
yeah, like he's always saying to my brother and I, hey, he's going to cancel his tickets because they don't spend in the free agency. And I've told him, and my buddy who is still up there, we've been best friends since eighth grade when I moved in. Um, I think Heim Bloom was a terrible hire. I said
Yeah.
that when I hired him. I
Yeah.
don't think taking the Tampa Bay blueprint to a large market team is going to help. And you can see that them losing Bogarts and them losing who else?
Mookie and
Yeah,
yeah.
Mookie. I think his his outlook on things just doesn't work well with the Red Sox. Now I know with Mookie, they wanted to reset the luxury tax issue, which I'm fine with. I don't think Mookie would have resigned, and it's hard to replace a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
But I feel like the Bogart situation was a bad look when you combine that with them doing nothing in the offseason to
Yeah.
help their team. They got the Japanese guy,
Yeah.
but I mean, you lost so much production, and you really didn't help the one glaring default, or not default, but the glaring issue, which was pitching.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, I didn't mind the Mookie deal, especially with like, getting Verdugo and some of the other pieces back. But if you knew you're going to lose him, at least you get a guy that you can start, right? And I
yeah,
know Verdugo hasn't been everything that, was hoped. But I mean, he's still young enough. There's still potential. And if you're just going to lose Mookie, at least you got, something for him. But yeah, the Bogarts thing is strange. And yeah, just really strange. It's tough because I don't mind like the like the Moneyball approach. I know that's not the best way to explain like the Tampa Bay kind of coaching or a GM tree there, but it doesn't always mean that everyone can execute it really well.
right. No,
Just like
absolutely.
guys who spend money, like Dombrowski, obviously in Boston at one point. I'm always a little like kind of hesitant with his moves. Like I didn't mind the Castellanos move or the Schwarber move. I just didn't particularly like both of them together. I'm glad it worked out so far. Um,
Yeah,
but like, and I'm always afraid he's just gonna I'm waiting for at some point for us to get rid of, I hopefully it won't happen, but like Andrew Painter or anyone that's in the Phillies organization that is considered a high prospect, and it's so far and few between that we even have one that
Right.
I just know that he usually like leaves the cupboard bare.
He
um
does.
yeah,
Yeah.
while we might be competitive for a couple of years, it's a tough thing. I mean, I of course every fan wants to be competitive every year. I know that's not necessarily realistic, but yeah, he scares me a little bit. But he does have a history of at least putting teams where Philly was last year.
Yeah. Yes. And I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things I wanted to go into is just kind of, it's been fun to look how or hear how people build their teams
Yeah,
um, in OOTP.
yeah.
Dombrowski is one where he will sell everything to get to a winner now. He
Hmm.
did it with Detroit. He did it with Boston. And
Yep,
when he left both of those clubs had absolutely no farm system.
yep, yep.
Um, so it's worked for him, because I mean, he got the Tigers to a World Series
Yeah,
and to the playoffs, and they haven't been back since.
right. Yeah, got
Um,
Boston there.
got Boston there, haven't been back since.
Yep.
So it works, but
Florida.
at what cost does it work? I
Yeah.
guess is really the
Yeah,
question.
totally. And and Philly as well. And I'm like I said, I'm definitely hopeful, but still a little bit nervous for the future, and hopefully sticks around long enough. And the shape of baseball at the moment with like the contracts, the way they're going is interesting to say the least. But to tie it into OOTP, I don't know if you saw a little bit of the back and forth we were going into on the trade block thread. It was I had posted, I guess, in trade needs that I'm looking for a pitcher. And let me see if I can pull this in real quick so you can see this. Can you see this screen here?
I can.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's just a little thread. We don't have to go through it, but basically the the gist is, I'm generally cheap, and so and I don't necessarily want to tear my farm apart to get a high end pitcher. I'm happy to get like a number 3 or so, and of course we have two long winning GMs here basically tell me to do the otherwise.
Right.
And so it's kind of torn on keeping the farm intact, but they're both right. And I love I don't know if you know the baseball announcer Casey Stern, but I've always
Oh
like
yeah.
yeah, so his mantra of prospects are cool, but I think
Parades
he
are
says
cooler.
yeah, parades are cooler. That's exactly
Yeah.
it. Flags hang forever, right?
Yeah.
And so I totally agree with that. I'm just a chicken shit. So
Oh, I'm the same way, and part of that is because I've been jaded. Uh, because when I first started OOTP, it seems like every league I'm in, I'm a small market team.
okay.
Now, that's one of the lures as to why I took over the Yankees.
Yeah.
So there's one league where I'm the Yankees, and there's one league where I'm the Red Sox. Every other league that I'm in is like the Cincinnati Reds, the Diamondbacks, the Tigers, where you still have Miggy's contract, and until
Yeah,
that
right.
goes away,
Yeah.
you're kind of screwed. And Reds. I'm the Red Sox in one. I'm the Yankees in one.
Right.
But
Okay.
to go back to your point, I don't trade. Like, I rarely trade.
Okay.
I
All right. Interesting.
usually build through the draft and build through free agency. Now, I know in
Yeah.
the previous one with, I believe it was the Nationals, you said that you're not much for spending money on free agents.
Well, I don't mind doing it, but I'm definitely conservative with it,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that's right. I just know, and part of it is like, I joke about it, but like I'm a curmudgeon old man, right? So like I see the cost of things.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's insanely expensive. I mean,
Yes.
look, this year I signed probably the highest free agent in the market, right? 42 mil per year,
Yeah.
so but I'm super um I mean, that's a unicorn for me,
Right.
so I'm usually trying to find the value in the guys and not be locked in. And again, I'm not promoting that as a way to go for anyone. It's just the way like that naturally I'm inclined to do. So I have to kind of talk myself through it sometimes to get, elsewhere besides
Yeah.
in the middle of the pack of every league.
Absolutely. And I've my biggest accomplishment I feel like is I took over the Milwaukee Brewers in one league, and they were like the Yankees in this league, where they were just absolutely nowhere in the
Yeah. Shit
postseason.
show. Yeah.
Went through the Rule 5, went through free agency, and went through the draft. And within 3 years, I won a championship.
Nice.
So
Okay. Yeah.
it has worked, although the majority of my teams now still seem to be in the middle of the pack, or
Yeah.
I'll be a one and done in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha.
But
Okay.
I have won. I think I've won 9 championships in doing it.
Nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. So you hit upon a couple things here that I think are interesting. So ballpark, how many leagues are you in right now?
Okay, so people are gonna be mind blown. Right now, I'm in 18. I need to come.
Ooh, eight, like 1-8.
Yeah, like 1-8.
Damn.
I need to
Wow.
bring it down a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
But yes, I'm in 18 leagues, and it's a lot. It's a
Yeah, it
lot.
is a lot. I know. I'm in 7, and I'm going to say that quietly in case my wife ends up being around, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it is a lot. Okay, so how long have you been playing ballpark?
So I've been playing OOTP, and it's kind of funny how I got to OOTP because growing up, I told you my dad took a job to go to Massachusetts. He worked for PC computer
Yeah.
companies, and so we always had PCs, and we always had APBA. I don't know if you know that, but it's kind of like Stratomatic, but it's a computer game.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, they have like APBA Go now, but it's
Okay.
static. Like it's not where you have online league. It's basically you buy the season, and you play with that team, and you
Okay.
can kind of make moves, but you can't draft. You can't. You can bring people up from the farm system, but the farm system is not as in depth as this. It's like the top 15 guys.
Gotcha. Right. Okay.
So that's my buddy and I, the same one I was talking about earlier. We would play this afternoon, every afternoon after school. And when I went to Apple computers, because I was tired of my PCs crashing all the time, APBA at the time didn't have a platform. So I wanted to find something, and I came across OOTP. And for the first year, which I think was 16, I just played single offline leagues.
Yeah.
And I did some research because I was like, there's got to be more to this than just this.
Right. Right.
Found out there was an online whole league community. And that's when I first got into it.
Okay. So through the
17.
forum, basically.
Through the forum, yeah, it
Okay.
was 17, and my mind was blown. I was like, "Oh my god, this is like so much better." Um, because again, you come across people who value prospects more than they value major leaguers, and then you have to kind of combat everybody asking for your top prospect for a guy who might be 32 and is on his way out of the league.
Yeah.
And it seems like, and that's why I don't trade a lot, because I feel like everybody's trying to gain that edge. Like listening to Rich, I probably will never trade with the Mets because that guy knows way too much about this game, the sliders and everything, which I learned a lot, and I'm going to try and implement with a couple of my pitchers, which I want to go over with you. But yeah, probably won't trade with Rich because
Yeah.
he's probably going to know something that I don't on the underneath that I'm not looking at, and be SOL. So
Well, you're giving him way too much credit, by the way. Jason's gonna want me to edit this out and squash that real quick.
well, and another one would be the Diamondbacks. I feel like the Diamondbacks, when I was listening to the Nationals guy, I feel like the Diamondbacks, and again, I don't know the trade, but I felt like he was getting rid of fragile players because they were getting hurt often, and Washington was looking at it like, okay, I have the money, and maybe they'll switch it over in DC.
Right. Yeah.
But I feel like Mike got a good player or two in that trade.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there is something to be said. It doesn't matter what it is, right? You could go back to like baseball card trading or, whatever it is. But in this case, when you have guys that are constantly showing that they're good for whatever reason, I generally also have a skepticism of like, all right, if they like this guy,
Yes.
so I get that as like a basic, level theory. And it's funny, I think Mike and I are in 5 leagues together. And I want to say we finally did a deal in one of them, and I can't remember, but or at least we were really close. But it's funny because you add up all those seasons and all those leagues, and it's we if we did one, then that would deserve a parade, but
Yeah,
by
absolutely.
no fault of his, it's just like I'm tough to trade with, I know, and and so and those walls go up with with most people. So
Yep.
um
Yep.
but yeah, all right. So you've been playing a while, you got into online, you're in a couple, you have a couple mixed markets there. Do you prefer big or small markets? And I guess the second part of that is, do you prefer, modern leagues, historic leagues? Does it not really matter? What's your kind of thought on those?
Yeah. So I like so the first question was small market or big market.
Yeah.
I guess to me, I feel like, and no offense, but you take the Yankees, you take the Red Sox, you take the Mets, especially the Mets in 2024 are going to be astronomical. Or the Dodgers, you're kind of playing with house money at that
Yeah.
point. Like
Correct.
you literally have money growing on trees.
Yep.
So for me to have success with someone like the Tigers or the Diamondbacks or the Pirates, which I'm in two leagues, and I made the playoffs in all three seasons, starting in 23. Um, teams like that, I have more pride for
Yep.
than if I were to take the Yankees to a championship, just
Yeah.
because it's like if I want a free agent, I can go get a free agent
Yeah.
like
I got you.
most
So
years.
I'm curious on that, right? So I don't disagree. I'm in one league. I am Cleveland, so face those barriers. And I am in the World Series right now against the Dodgers. So, of course I
Yep.
have most of the league rooting for me. um
Yep.
and in this particular league, I haven't looked at it in a long time, as like an overall, but when we started it, I leveled everything out, as in terms of like media revenue, all the finances were equal because we were drafting from scratch, and
Right.
I had no clue what I was doing. We just started this with a couple of the friends, and it filled up, but I didn't want there to be that disparity between the Dodgers and Tampa, for example, because I just figured, well, who'd want to be Tampa? And again, not knowing that the online community and preference for some people, was so popular to like do rebuilds or do small markets. That I didn't
Yep.
want. Yeah, I didn't want people to pick teams based off of the ease or the hardship of it, and so I'm curious to see, like, I would like to figure out like how much this league differs with those big markets compared to some of the smaller ones, over time with just like ballpark size and things like that. But yeah, so but I'm with you. I agree that it's when the other leagues I'm in, when the Dodgers win, it's like, well, no shit.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Like,
Right.
and of course, the further along we get from reality, things can change and teams have to
It,
sometimes rebuild and stuff like that.
totally. Totally. But and to answer your second question, I'm in two historical leagues. One that started in '94, and I took the Braves in that one because it had Chipper Jones, who was my favorite player
Yeah.
uh,
Okay.
growing up. And then I'm in one that started literally at the turn of the century, 1901, and it the league is now in 1978, and I came
Wow.
in 1911.
That's
Uh,
crazy.
so you literally have all the guys that have come into the league during that year, and before expansion, before the other teams came in, it just changes how history works,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Right.
So
Right.
it's been fun to kind of watch how each team goes about different things. And then when expansion comes in, you kind of only are able to hold like 15 or 18, and you get to kind of see how those new teams build. So it's been fun, and the commissioner's great, longtime commissioner, um, named Snake. That's what he goes by,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you may or may not know him, but
I
it's great.
don't, but maybe I might have seen through like Stats Plus stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great league, and it's been fun. So I don't like fictional leagues. I don't like leagues that start in 2065. And I'll be honest with you, when a league gets to a certain point and I don't know anybody anymore, it gets kind of like it's not in the forefront. I
Yeah.
like
It's
how
not as enjoyable.
leagues. yeah, I
Yeah.
get, 10, 15 years out and I'm like, okay, that's probably, it's going to be good
Yeah.
for me.
I can understand that. And because I'm so new to this in some scheme, I think or some scale. Our I think our history kind of started around the same time with playing solo and things like that. But you definitely have a lot more experience in online and playing a lot more leagues. But I've always been curious to see like, so what happens totally when everyone is gone? There's no Tatises, there's no Machadas and Francos and things like that. But
Yep.
I've noticed that and I think I forget who it was. It might have been Arizona Mike, but you do still kind of, for me at least, still kind of fall in love with those prospects that you're waiting to develop. And when they finally get up, I don't care if their name is Steve Smith or,
Yeah.
whatever. I just like, I just, I'm really wanting to see them perform and develop. And so that part's appealing too. Um,
Yeah.
but I can understand. And I'm always curious to see like where, each league goes, especially because the pandemic was such a boom for this whole game and this whole
It
world.
was.
So yeah, as everyone gets back to normal life, then you see people, it's kind of like how people got a lot of puppies and pets and now they're having to realize like, shit, this is hard in real life. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and so so all the leagues become trickier, and so I'm always curious to see like the future of it, and of course like I always want to keep this going, but I'm also aware that there may become a time where we just shift things. And if we have the same people, then that's great. I'm not, looking to do that. I'm just aware that like there could be a possibility of that,
Yeah.
for partly
Absolutely.
based around the reason you're saying.
And I don't mean to cut you off.
No, it's all good. Yeah.
So the one thing I will say is there are two leagues that like one is 2041 and one was 2049. But the thing I liked about those two leagues was the commissioner always kind of was active,
Yeah.
and did stuff like this that kept the excitement building around the league. And I'm still in those two leagues. But the other thing is I started with those leagues, so I started with those teams. I didn't come in after someone had just absolutely obliterated it and
Right. Right.
start from scratch
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. It makes
Uh,
sense.
so like the Yankees, for instance, like Chris Short, yeah, I love the guy. Everybody wanted him. I ain't trading him.
Right. 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 And so wait,
Uh,
this is your what, third year with them, right?
it is, yeah.
Okay.
And if you remember, like my minor league system when I came in had like four guys in AAA. So
Right.
like I
Right.
had completely built the entire organization other than the major leagues.
Yeah. Okay. I got you. Yeah. Yeah. And do you remember how we linked up? Was it another league? It had to be, right?
Yeah, it
Uh,
was another league. Someone had posted, it wasn't you, but someone had posted that you were looking for GMs. And so, funny story. Yes, I grew up in Detroit and I moved to Massachusetts. My girlfriend now is a from New York, a huge Yankees fan.
yeah.
Another reason why I would never have taken the Yankees until I met
Just
her.
trying to get some brownie
So
points.
yeah, exactly. So if she sees me doing it and I'm the Yankees, she might like turn
She'll
a
leave
different.
you be, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
That's great. Okay, that's cool. Are we still in that other league together, or are you not there?
I don't. What leagues are you in?
MVP, Bat Flip, Spider Tack, the historical HBL2, um, uh, FLG, which I'm co-commissioner of, LGS, which I'm a co-commissioner of. Those LGS, Long Gone Summer, is a historical league. FLG was run by someone else, and then Joey, Matthew, and I took over. That's I think it's the same year we're in now, around the 2030s. So
Okay. No, I'm
yeah.
not in any of those leagues.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious to see how we did it, but it's all good. But yeah, let's dig in, man. I was poking around a little bit
Yeah.
on your squad. I noticed I know you had said that you're frustrated, with your team does well and then falls down. And you guys have a tough division here, man. Like I didn't realize that despite only being one game under 500, you're 17 and a half back. It's and little
Yeah.
rough stretch here, 2-8. It's crazy.
Yeah. So it seems like every like the three seasons I've been a part of this, take the first season out because I think I came
Right.
in
Yeah. You had a shit show.
25 or 30 games into the season.
Yeah.
Um, but the last two seasons, it's remember I think 2 seasons ago I was all pumped up because I
Yeah.
was
You like were on
playoff
that
hunt.
verge there. Yeah.
and then we just took a nosedive.
Yeah.
And then again this season, and it might have been like where Mike pointed out, like I don't look at the schedule, maybe I should, but we had one off day in May, I think it was. So yeah, it baffles me that we go into this mid-season swoon or late season swoon
Yeah.
every single season I've been here,
Yeah.
because it just doesn't seem like with the team that I have put on the field, barring injury, that I should take the severe nosedive that I do.
Yeah, yeah. I got you. I'm with you. And I struggle with that. Actually, the league that Arizona Mike commissions, the Brewers in that. And I love that team. I've loved that team. And I can't tell you how many times I've asked, not even necessarily looking for answers, but just in a venting way, like, what the fuck am I doing wrong? Like this team, I
Yeah.
cannot. And I look at the first place team and they're well built. And I know that commish from a couple other leagues and he does such a good job. But I'm like, am I really, 18 games back from them? Like, am I,
Yep.
that much less than them? And I've started to learn a little bit of my holes, but I still struggle with, like, I kind of throw my arms up and I'm just confused by why I'm not doing better. So hey, let's dig in. I mean, there's a couple things right off the bat. I don't know if you want to jump right into that. Like as I just glanced, and dude, I am no OOT professional. Like I need a lot of assistance and help. So I anything I offer is just a sheer opinion, right?
Yeah, no, no,
and
yeah.
and learn from others that are better than me, right? Um,
Well, and
and
that's been the beauty of listening to these podcasts is because I like there's little tidbits from everybody that I'm starting to like catch on to that maybe I should start doing.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Okay,
and,
that's
and
great,
there
man.
there are a few leagues. This is one. I'm not saying that just because I'm on it, but this is one where like I'm entrenched in this team.
That's great, man. I love that.
And I feel like I feel like this is an off year for my pitching staff, which clearly, as you hover over my team, it
Yeah,
is.
right.
But the defense efficiency, it's the same guys. Like I got rid of Acuna, who was on his way out.
Yeah,
Like he was like 34, 35, didn't have the range they used to. We still have Mora, who was like a gold glover his first season. And I just feel like for whatever reason, this season for pitching and defense hasn't been what it has been the last two seasons.
yeah. I think what I've noticed, and we can dig into it. I think man, I might be able to help. I don't know. Like,
Perfect.
I hope so. Yeah. But yeah. So as we see on screen here, right? That like I noticed that, and these numbers are perfect because like I didn't really look at that at first. I didn't look at it. Not really. I just didn't look at it first. But I looked. I'm like, man, you have some bashers and you have some guys that can hit for sure. So seeing that you're fourth in runs, seeing that you're sixth in home runs is not a surprise. And then seeing those numbers for the 23rd in ERA and 21st in K, I don't really care about Ks, but and then 25th in defense, like it at least looks that makes sense a little bit from what I was looking at, right? But I do agree, like you have a team that looks like it should be better than is performing. So here's one thing I saw right off the bat, right? This
Yeah.
dude's a stud, right? I love this guy, beast. We're looking at Luis Dominguez, 31-year-old righty, the ace of the staff. I love the fact that he's still in arbitration. And ground ball pitcher. Everything about this guy to me is I see no flaws. Um,
Yeah.
and so, but the one thing I noticed is his pitch counts, right? So I just, and I hope you don't mind, but I'm looking in here where I can
No.
see your whole thing. So if you're not comfortable with at any part,
No.
just let me know. All right, cool.
Open book. Open
All right,
book.
sweet. So I noticed there was no pitch counts, and I didn't know if that was like a setting that you cared about, something you didn't care about. And I went into strategies, and I know we want to play a little bit with the sliders and stuff. And so the second thing I looked at was I said, you know what, let me see. I don't know if you ever saw this stat. Let me see if I can pull it up here real quick. From and this is stolen directly from Mike in Arizona, who shared this with me a while back. And I don't use this much because I set like really conservative pitch counts for most of my guys. But have you
Yeah.
ever looked at this the PAP stat here?
No, this is what you were talking about with Rich, I believe.
Yeah, we might have touched upon it, right? And so basically the description, is down here, the total. Basically, it's how much the arms are being abused. And I just wanted to see where Dominguez fell in, right? And then I wanted to see, if you look at the two top five, we have two Yankees in the top five, that three in the top 11, right? And so digging in, we can do this later, but basically the stress on their arms, the categories that it is, and blah blah blah. But like a simple thing to solve the simple way to solve that is basically just set pitch counts. And so I'm not sure, like Dominguez at least looks like he's got great stamina. So you could probably set him, at 110, 115, probably still be okay. And I guarantee you right now, like Rich and Mike are cursing my name or laughing at me, either one. But when you go to look at the pitching stats and game log, I was just kind of scrolling through, and this is what made me realize, okay, he's got 131. These numbers, are okay for me. 126. These numbers are all okay. Obviously, depending on like the game he's having. But I might start with that. Just as
Yeah.
a way to see if you can. I
Can you
don't
go
know.
back to that screen for one more second?
Yes, I can.
Because if you look at Dominguez, I think the majority of where his abuse is were May, where we had the 1 day off.
Right.
So I think
That
my
schedule.
bullpen or other factors might have played into him having to pitch so long.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, you had this little stretch here. Yeah. Well, as far as the schedule goes, I definitely I don't know. It's so weird in a couple leagues actually, and I try to mix them up and change them so we're not strictly playing the same teams in the other division all the time.
Yep.
I'm sorry, in the other league, and so some reason this year it created an odd scenario where we're kind of overlapping the Sunday into Monday series and double headers and stuff like that. I really just want to play the balanced schedule like they're offering this year in MLB. But every time I did that setting, it came up where some teams are playing 150 games, some people are playing 162, and obviously that's not going to work. Right?
No, it's not.
So I defaulted back to, I think I just picked like, I don't know, 2013 schedule or something like that was at least modern enough. But yeah, it went wacky. But it definitely seems to screw, teams like yours here where you have multiple double headers and things like that. But yeah, I would definitely say, starting with a pitch count, I think you would see probably huge. I mean, I don't know. I would just assume it would help,
Yeah,
but yeah,
absolutely.
it might push more on these guys. I don't know how many long relievers you have in here that can, handle it.
I
But
got a
yeah,
lot.
you got a decent amount. And I do want to come back to the pitching, but the other couple things that I saw just at a quick glance was the shortstop defense. And this is the same scenario I had with that Milwaukee team where I love the dude's bat. He was good enough, but I found that like once I upped my range in that guy from like 50 to 65 or so, I definitely saw that boost, like help my pitchers for one. And fielding stats. So yeah, so like right now, for whatever these stats are worth, the zone rating, the range and things like that, I know that if we go look at any other winning team, which we can, I guarantee you they're not going to have zone ratings of, of what we see here,
Yeah.
and it's hard though. Shortstops are freaking unicorns.
Well, so two things about this. So I lost, I forget who I lost, or he went to free agency that I had last year. So shortstop is a disaster.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So his range, what is his,
Sorry,
what is
60.
Short's, fielding stats? I think you know his fielding
Let's
stats?
see. Yeah, let's take a look. What am I looking at? Fielding
Yeah.
stats. And so, okay.
He's minus 1.6 and he's played 132 innings. So long
Yeah.
story short, one of the things that I feel, being that I played baseball, is up the middle is vitally important.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I always try and have a team that has a star catcher defensively, second and shortstop, and then center field. Like that's
Yep.
how I build my teams out. Unfortunately, I had let I can't remember who it is right now. He was a shortstop, played well for me, had to leave him off the free agency.
Yeah.
So I had to fill this hole, but next or this offseason, that is number one. That and outfielder, the corner outfielder is number one for me.
And those things are hard, and I get that. Like there's gaps that you either have to live with or sign some dude that is just, so much less of a bad or whatever it may be, cancer in the clubhouse. But yeah, definitely I love the bat here, and I'd feel comfortable playing him in any of the other infield positions.
But he's actually one of the weaker ones. If you look at like my strength right now, somehow is first base. I have three first base.
I saw that.
That literally mash that I should probably trade one of them out of you always want to trade from a position of power.
Yeah.
first base, but a lot of people don't like first base because they can literally stick Tom, Joe, or
Right.
Dick
You could fill
at first
anyone in
base
there. Yeah,
and
exactly.
be all right.
So, real quick, so as we're on, so at third base we have Brad Christopher. I mean, this dude looks great. Has he been your starting third base for most of the year, or where's Cross playing when you have him in, or short? I'm sorry, short.
No, he has not been short. Short has been short,
Okay.
and Christopher's been third.
Okay. All right. So Chris Short, who's on the IL for another 2 weeks. So figure if you give him, do you usually send your guys down for rehab assignments?
So interesting story about that. If they've been on the 60-day DL and they've been out for longer than 5 weeks, I
Yeah.
do.
Okay.
With pitchers, which I did for Burning, who I have is a mystery to me, my pitcher.
Yeah.
But most positional players, I do not put on DL.
Okay. You bring it right back. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of in a little bit of the same concept, but I do usually put the players back, even just for a little bit. Even like if it's unless it's like a 2 week hamstring, I'll bring them right back. If it's like a 6 week shoulder or 4 week shoulder, whatever, something like that, I usually will I usually let them go for a week if I can. Um,
Right.
but yeah, so real quick,
Looking
we
at this
got
now, I know why he sucks at starting pitcher.
his stamina. Yeah,
His stamina. His
yeah,
stamina was before injury at like 60, 65,
gotcha. Okay,
which is
yeah,
why he was at 2.9
yeah.
in 2031. Was out all 2032, as you can see with Tommy
Yeah,
John.
right. Oh shit. Yeah. So you took a beating. All right. So let me take a look at his injury
Yeah.
history. So okay. So yeah. So he had
Torn rotator cuff.
wow, torn rotator cuff, and then what?
And then he
Last
was
year
coming
it was
back and he had a
two
right.
torn rotator. Wow,
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
rotator cuff tears. That's crazy. Okay. Yeah. So he's had a rough little stretch here.
What
Um,
do you, I know what's the injury setting in this league?
Normal. Yeah. Actually,
Okay.
uh,
So normal to me with the way the OTP engine is I feel like that is normal in the number of people who are injured, but the length, especially with pitchers, tends to be more severe. I feel like
okay.
there's torn rotator cuffs and Tommy Johns and whatever for a lot more people than what normally have it. Like, yeah, there's Walker Bueller, and there's a few others, but like in the normal setting for me, and this is just me kind of spouting out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like the number of people that are injured is is okay to what normal life is, but
Right.
the severity, especially to younger pitchers, is too high.
Gotcha. Yeah, you know what's funny? I actually thought this setting was here. It's kind of where I prefer it to be. I don't
Yes,
know.
me too.
Yeah, I don't know if when we switched over seasons, because I know at least one of the league, some like baselines and things like that shift back to default for some reason. But I actually prefer the long-term injury to be low. So it's something that we can discuss in the league, at some point. Because I mean,
And
part of it
that
is being realistic, but the other part of it still is like keeping people's like morale high. And if all your guys are hurt for 14 months, it's not much fun.
right, right, and the thing, and in the leagues that I've been in, when you go out 20 years, you have a lot less Chris Shorts or a lot less Chris Wessons coming into the league when they get to the major leagues because of all the injuries taking a toll as they
Gotcha.
develop.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Interesting.
that's, I think in 23, that long term versus short term is the first time that setting's been around.
It is. Yeah.
It used to only be one setting.
Right. Yeah. And I love that idea because I'm okay with the current ones, being normal, which I do think is also a little bit higher. But I just don't want those long terms just draining teams, draining people, and just it's potentially ruining leagues if people lose interest.
Well,
Um,
and again, you're losing you're losing the quality of the prospect when they finally make the major leagues. Now
Well,
I
that
love
yeah, yeah,
cases,
that's true. That's a good way to
but
bring it back, actually, because yeah, I mean, this dude, Ronnie Burning, if he missed that much time, it makes sense his stamina would be lower. I could see that, how he becomes a reliever. I don't know. I most picture modern, maybe obviously this guy had more success, but like Nate Pearson, the dude just gonna
yeah,
end up having to be a reliever, not out of stuff purposes, but that does help him probably hopefully succeed there. But just in the aspect of like keeping him healthy and not running him so long.
right.
So, all right, so that's good. We at least figured this out together. put put
But
this.
I like his ancillaries. Like he's got a fastball,
Oh,
he's got a changeup, he's got a knuckle curve, he's a leader. I
yeah,
think if you look at his popularity and morale, I think he's popular. I might be wrong about that,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
he's popular. So having him in the clubhouse has helped me.
100%. I mean,
Uh,
he's yeah, all his bars there are fantastic. I love him as a starter. Um, let's see what happens when you put him as a reliever here. Okay, yeah, I mean, he leads stuff, and he's probably, not that it's obviously 35 is a little bit on the lower side, but he's probably still can get 2 innings out of this dude each time in relief.
well, he could probably fit in as a great setup, stopper, or
Right.
closer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Let me just bring him back so I don't mess you up here. All right, so we have Bernie. I want to go back real quick and look at your lineup, right? So typically we have the injured short playing short over Peguero.
Yes,
Okay, and then where's Peguero usually play?
second base.
Second base. Okay, yeah, yeah, I like that. And then this dude, John Jones, who's in
I
second now.
just brought him up.
Okay, gotcha. Right, so that makes sense. Okay, cool. And then looking at your first basemen, we have the Luis Perales. Yeah,
Who I
this
just
guy
brought
is
up. I just brought up.
this guy. I love that. He definitely rakes, and as he matures here, 21 years
Yeah.
old. Yeah, I mean, as he matures, I think those left-handed bars could improve as well. You know.
Yep.
And then we have, I saw your DH, Danny Colonnese. Same thing, great bat. Was he 29 years old? Okay, yeah, he's still reasonably cheap. And
Yeah, but and he plays a great first base, but I can't play all
right,
three first
yeah,
basemen.
yeah,
And I have Christopher, who fortunately plays third base.
yeah, no, yeah, yeah, and he plays it perfectly there, so it's fine. Those bars are fine for me. Those ratings for defense, I'm cool with that.
And he's got the arm. Jesus, a
Yeah,
75.
yeah, exactly. I did notice, so I like your center fielder, but I'm wondering if you could find the unicorn to touch like a little smidge more range. I'm wondering if that would help. And I don't know if you know this answer, but I'm always curious, because if we block out, the ratings up here, right, left
Yeah.
field, center field, and just strictly go by this, right, like this is elite corner, the range error arm, elite corner outfield numbers ratings. But does the rating above it matter? So for example, if he's a 65 outfield center field ranger, I think most people go, yeah, that's about where, like, the lower level where I want them to be. And for years, I personally never cared. As long as he was a 50, I looked at it as average, and I was incorrect, and it was destroying my defense, I'm sure. But I don't mind these numbers necessarily, but how much do you think they coexist with his overall center field rating of 55? Is
So
65 range, 55 error, 55 arm, all pretty good. 55 center fielder,
yeah, so I feel like that, and I know from hearing different forums and listening to I can't remember the German guy's name that does this, but
Marcus.
Marcus, yes,
Yeah.
thank you. That there are underlying ratings that we don't see.
Okay.
No one sees those underlying ratings. So that's why sometimes you'll have somebody with an overall and a potential and just never live up stat wise to what they should be. So I feel like the range, the error, and the arm, I honestly feel like the real life Diamondbacks are what the new look major league system will be,
Okay.
where you have three center fielders out, especially in the larger ballparks, maybe not Yankee Stadium, maybe not, like Cincinnati,
Right.
but the fields that have the larger outfields are going to have three center fielders who can hit, where you
Okay.
have Carroll, Thomas, and Drew Jones when he gets up there.
Yeah. Right. 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 And now you
Uh,
have McCarthy who can cover ground too.
or Luplo,
Yeah.
but McCarthy's, I mean, yeah, he's got somebody that's a 98 speed if you look at like a Madden rating.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Yeah.
And that's where I was trying to go with Yoder, because I don't know where Mora is, but Mora used to be my center fielder. Um, is he injured? What the hell
Oh,
is he?
here he is. He's right field. He just,
Okay.
yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. I
Uh,
like this guy.
so there you go. That
Yeah.
used to be my center fielder, but he was batting a 195. So I was just trying to put somebody else in there that
Who could
might be
hit
good.
a little bit. Yeah. But he's
And
got,
he
I mean,
can't hit either. So
yeah, he can't. All right, so in that sense, that I guess is a good question, and I'll pose it. It can be rhetorical, and we may not know the answer, but would you? And I guess it is kind of dependent on lineup build. but you have some mashers. Like, do you think it makes sense just like let this guy be? He's got a 70 ram. We're talking about Alvaro Mora,
Yeah.
27-year-old, listed as a right fielder, but 70 outfield range, 65 error, 60 arm. I love that as a center fielder, and his overall position rating is 65. The dude can obviously, yeah, he's funny. He's not that fast, but he's got good stealing and base running instincts. But
And he's
yeah,
got good range. He's got good outfield range.
yeah, no, 100%. And I think that to me is number one for center fielders. I guess that's where I'm trying to go with it. I rather range than anything, right?
Yeah. So someone like my prototypical, when I first came into the first league where I was the Astros, I made a terrible trade. I traded Carlos Correa for three Yahoos who probably would never have made the major leagues based
Right.
upon they were. But it got reversed because everybody had an uproar.
Okay.
Anyways, while doing that, I had somebody who was experienced in OOTP tell me, you want, and this is kind of where I build, and if I had my way in free agency when I get my money, the contact, the gap power, the discipline, and the avoid Ks need to be at the minimum 55,
Okay.
especially for a center fielder who
Yeah.
can run, has the outfield range, error, and arm,
Okay.
which all should be over 60. And then the home run power, because I have built with those three first basemen who can want to be a DH at any given point,
Yeah.
who mash, those guys are the ones that get on base, the ones I was telling you before. So if you
Right.
have a second baseman who don't usually hit home runs and a center fielder who, if you have a solid DH, first base, third base, and one corner outfield who can mash them in, you want guys that hit doubles, can steal, and possibly triples.
Okay. All right.
So solid defense up the middle, and you need to have somebody who has the high contact gap, um, avoid Ks, and I.
Okay.
Home
And
run power doesn't mean that much.
yeah, right, right. And so and I'm with you, right? So I guess I didn't even I rambled and I didn't even really pose the question completely. In the scenario where we have Yoder and Mora, right? And we can look at these guys back to back. So go to actions and we'll compare a player.
Yep.
When we look at these guys, right, who really cares about how old they are, anything like that doesn't really matter, right? But batting wise, they're pretty similar, right?
They
There's,
are.
I mean, uh, Nora, what do we have here?
Well,
So,
Moore has better gap potential and more home runs, which in Yankee Stadium probably isn't going. And that's the other thing. This game is so immersed because you got to look at, like, if I was going back to the Diamondbacks, if I was the Diamondbacks, where I play in a large Arizona, I play in a large Dodger Stadium outfield, I play in a large Giant outfield, then the gap potential and the contact potential would be my highest things that I would look at, because
okay.
I feel like you don't have to hit home runs necessarily, but you need to have the station to station guys that get on base, and then
I
have
like
your matches come up.
I like that, man. And you had said earlier, and I kind of didn't hit upon it, but I think maybe saying it again, it did click in this time where I can see that in that scenario. It makes sense because I generally ignore the gap power as far as like that would probably be my lowest, like my last thing I look at as far as the batting profile. And again, I'm not saying that's right, because if someone that was an OOTP veteran telling you that, definitely fucking trust them over me. but
Well,
but I like
and,
what you're saying with the ballpark kind of makes a difference there.
yeah, and you don't have
Colorado,
to.
great gap field,
It's going to be less, I think, in 24 if they do the scheduling, where you're not playing 19 times against your opponent. But in
Yeah.
23, when you are playing 19 times against the Giants, the Dodgers, Colorado, and Arizona, if you're in that division, you probably want somebody who's going to hit gaps
Yeah.
and has speed, because that's basically, I feel like, and what I was told was, you got to look at not only your home stadium, but where else are you playing?
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
playing in Boston. I'm playing in Yankees. I'm playing in Orioles, the Rays, or now the Stars, and then missing somebody.
Yeah.
Um,
Baltimore, you said.
yeah,
Toronto. I
Toronto.
Yeah.
None of those. Maybe Toronto. The other four. I mean, the Yankee Stadium is a bandbox, and you have a short porch in Fenway on the right field.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I
Right.
mean, yeah.
Well, I mean, here, right? So going like the question I ask is if and again maybe Mora just like on the bench a little bit, but like if you're looking at a profile like Mora and Yoder, and we can go through these, I do want to go through these a little bit and go back to defense, then would, and they're so similar, would you, on with your team build right now with some mashers, would you prefer a guy that's a little better defensively or a little better with the bat as center fielder?
So going back to kind of where I had just mentioned, if I was looking at the Yankees and I'm looking at my opponents,
Yeah.
I would probably want somebody who has a better bat
Okay. All
because
right.
you're
All right.
playing in smaller ballparks.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I got you. Okay. Right. So that makes sense with what you're saying. Yeah. I
If
apologize
I
if I
was
made you repeat that.
No, no, you're good. You're good. Absolutely. And if I was in Arizona or San Francisco, I would want somebody that has better defense because the
Okay.
outfield is just so much more immersed.
Yeah,
Like
I got you.
they're
That
so
makes
large.
sense. Yeah. My instinct here, and again, it's not correct. It's only strictly an instinct. I kind of like Mora better, right? I mean, for me personally, I like if he's going to be facing right-handers more often than not, I like his bat a little bit more. I think because I think and I know that this is like a really archaic way of doing it, but we're basically equaling out here close enough with, I and avoid K. I guess it's a little better here on Yoder, but he's got the power, he's got a little better contact, he's got way better gap. And then, all these peripherals as far as, bunting and stealing, it's all pretty similar. But if we go to D, then I
Sorry.
actually, it's all good, man. I like Mora's defense better, and so if everything else is so similar, I think I lean towards Mora. And I know that with what you're saying with ballpark and things like that, but I don't see the difference enough personally for me in the batter ratings to prefer one really. So like the
Yeah.
tiebreaker for me is the defense, I guess.
Yeah.
But
And Mora, if you go into Mora, you'll see um his recent go back if you go to Mora and you go to last year's stats
yeah, no, let's just go. We want
or 2 years ago.
batting stats, right?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Like he's hitting 25, 30, and 28 bombs.
Wow. Yeah, as a center
So like,
fielder, that's great. Yeah.
yeah, as a center fielder, that's
Low
great. And
OBP,
this year, the first 2 months, he was doing absolutely nothing. So I
yeah,
was trying to bring somebody in
right.
who gave me similar
That
defense,
makes sense. I got you. Right.
but
Light a
might
fire
have a
under
little bit
Mora's
different.
ass.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's take a look at Yonder's profile. So yeah, he's struggling too, right? So we got
They both
let's
are.
yeah, 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 yeah. 186, 241. Yeah, maybe platoon him a little bit back and forth, but at least you have two guys on defense that can play center, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And then you have the mashers. So first base Paralysis, dude, these mashes. I know he's brand new there.
Okay.
It's all good, man. The
Sorry.
Colonnades crushes. And then your corner outfielders with Jake Morset. Yeah, mashes there too, can play. And it's funny. I love his when we're looking at Jake Morset here, I love his batter ratings, and speed's cool, fielding's cool. It's amazing. And I never understand this. I don't really know how much it matters, but I feel like he should be rated higher than a 48,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
46.
And I've seen like as I go through this, I do see where there are sometimes the player outperforms their rankings,
Yeah, yeah, and vice
um,
versa, obviously.
and vice versa, and
Yeah,
that's going to be the underlying ratings that we don't see.
right. I
So
gotcha.
when I'm trading, and a lot of times, and there was another league where I was trading somebody who was a very high prospect, and they were giving me a guy who, the last 2 years his ERA hasn't been below 4.9 or whatever. And I was like, no, I don't want that guy because to me, stats are more important than what the actual ratings are.
Right, I gotcha.
And that's kind of the thing that when we first started this conversation was it's fun to kind of sometimes
Mhm.
see how people value different things.
Yeah, yeah, yep.
And scouting's another one. Like I deal with, I've had um, a better what's the word I'm looking for? Profile with scouts who do ability. Other
Okay,
people
interesting.
feel like they have the tools that do better.
I'm
Uh,
100% that way, and I don't know if I go look at my scout, and if you looked at every scout,
Neutral.
and yeah, in this case it's neutral, which probably the first time I ever tried that, and I'm happy with it. But I've always gone tools, and I don't know if that's right. Just like that's like the my instinct of how that would go, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but I could see ability making more sense, and I think yeah, I forget who it was now. Might have been Rich. I think he might lean the same way. Um,
yeah.
Interesting. And then again, like you hit upon it, we've touched upon it in other podcasts, but that is one of the beauties about this game is that everyone does things differently. There's a thousand ways to get to the same place, you know, and all we can do is kind of grab snippets and little pieces and try to learn, you know, but the hard part is sometimes the learning takes a couple seasons. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was taking a look at your right fielder, Chris Colasino,
Yep.
Colasino. I love this dude. You know, batting profiles, you know, perfect for me. Line drive hitter, fly ball hitter, cool, plays everywhere, which is great. Uh, and rating wise, pretty even as far as lefty versus righty split wise, I should say. I almost want to like my if I was like to control your team for a quick second and like say I'm going to do my best to fix it for in 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
I think what I would do now. I obviously we don't have your shortstop, your healthy shortstop back, so you know part of it would be 2 weeks. But if we slid when that happens, Pereira to second, obviously short at short. Um, and then I want to put Colasino at third. Um, and my main reason why, let me see real quick. My main reason why is looking at Colasino when I go to his range defensively for outfield, about 45. And that works 45, 45, 75. I'm cool with that as a right fielder. But I almost want to see what we could do if we put, and I know they're not hitting that great, if we put Mora and Yoder into this outfield for a couple games, even if it's just you know, righty versus lefty thing, right? So if
Yeah.
Yoder is pretty even-ish, but I saw one of your outfielders here, more set, great bat, but definitely struggles a little bit more versus lefties, right?
Yeah.
So what if we went versus lefties more defensive heavy, you know, for a couple of those games, help your pitchers out a little bit, and then move Colasino to third with Mora in center and Yoder in one of the corners, you know, still crushes the ball. I
Supposedly.
right, right, it's true. And going back to what you said as far as you and when we had Andy on last, I know he's more of a stat guy, and I'm just such a sucker for like the pretty colors, you know, so I get stuck all the time. But I almost wanted to do some of that, and I even left out Cabron Hayes here, who like he's a monster at defense and third.
He
um
is.
you have a lot of wiggle room and movement here. I think that I would gear towards being more defensive, and
Yeah.
you know, and
And,
that's hard.
and it is. And in Yankee Stadium, I feel like you need to be defensive because I mean, to a certain point on the infield, because the outfield doesn't, I don't think is as important because it's so short. Like it's a sandlot.
Yeah,
But
I get
field
you.
is important, especially if you're throwing ground ball pitchers out there, which I tend to lean towards.
Yeah,
Four pitch pitchers that have the ground ball or neutral tendency is what I usually look for.
right.
When I fell out of the race, I put Colasino out there because I wanted his bat in the lineup, and right field to me was where he best fit.
Yeah, and he does. And again, you know, I'm with you. The 45 range is fine, you know, and right for me, of course, if it's better, great. But he basically is he's a John Carlos Stanton, right? You know,
Yeah, and he's
or
got the arm, so
yeah,
like if
right.
he
That's it.
needs
Yeah,
to, he can throw it home and probably not have an issue.
right. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. I'm fine with
Uh,
that there.
but yes, and you know everybody talks about depth, and you need to have depth.
You have it though.
Well, but I have a lot of the same position. I
I
have a lot of
gotcha.
first
Right, right.
basemen,
Yeah.
and I have a lot of third basemen.
Yeah, you do. So, all right. So Mike Reynolds, 31-year-old first baseman. He's a free agent in a couple years. Mashes can play great first,
I
mashes
just
the ball.
extended him.
Did you? Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So I mean, to me, and I know this is out of your comfort zone, even though I've only known you for a half hour here, but it sounds like we got to put Luis Perales on the trading block, my friend. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
21-year-old
mean,
masher.
but at the same time, I wanted to bring him up so that he could have the stats that if people were looking at ratings,
Okay. All right.
they're seeing it, but then I can come over the top and again trade from position
I
and say,
gotcha.
okay,
Yeah.
he has the stats at the major league level as well.
Right. I gotcha. All right. So, but tell in the future, we're going to see Perales on the trading block soon.
In the off season,
All
if
right.
I
There we
can,
go.
yeah, in the
Yeah.
off season, especially if there's not a shortstop out there that I feel like where I can move short to second and have outstanding defense.
Yeah.
Uh, Aguero being a backup, a utility guy with Colosino at third and Reynolds at first. I mean, right there, you have the makings of not only masters, but a defensive all-star team in the infield.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. Dude, I think you're close, man. And do have a hard division. I mean, Tampa is a tough team. Or Nashville, I'm sorry. Um,
Luke Leto.
yeah, you have a couple. These are upcoming free agents.
There, look at that.
Yeah,
Do you see
right.
that defensive
Yes.
rating
Yeah.
error and
Boing, boing,
all
boing,
that?
boing, boing, boing. Right.
I mean, his OPS is a 110, his WAR is a 3.7. Like that's a perfect guy
Yeah.
to fit in. His gap power is there.
He's a stud. Going to fielding stats. I mean, 13
So
zone ranger.
yeah, I mean,
Zone range.
that
Yeah.
right there would be who I would. Now I'm probably giving it away, and I'm probably going to have people like Boston or somebody try and block me. But someone like that is who I would look for.
And to
Maybe
no
someone with
surprise,
a little bit better eye if you can
yeah.
find similar ratings.
Well, yeah, all right. I mean, you want to marry the the rich stripper looking lady with class, all right? That's what you're trying
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
you want the freak in the bedroom, but the
I
lady
want yeah, lady in the street, freak in the bed.
right,
Exactly.
yeah. Yeah. Well, when you find that, and I feel like I have that, I feel pretty fortunate personally. But Luke Leto is a beast, and it's no surprise here that we have a first place team, right? I'm just gonna take stabs. Right. We go to Mike's Arizona shortstop. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
actually it's great, but I'm sure that he's had
But now
better.
his bat isn't. I mean, his bat, which probably brings down the WAR, but his OPS is only an 80 or 661, and his OPS plus is only an 80.
Yeah,
So
I
like
and
he,
I think Mike here is and I may be wrong. I don't want to speak for him, but I think he's more interested in that OBP. Not that he doesn't want those other numbers. And again, I'm only taking this from some brief conversations. I'm sure that like knowing that he's not going to find that unicorn, most likely. I mean, I guess he had him in Lindor, but he'll take that defense mixed with that base running and mainly that OBP. My
yeah,
guess.
and absolutely, and that's where the I and the avoid K's come in.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Let me take a look at Richie Poo here. Uh,
Kyron Paris.
Yeah, yeah, same thing, but actually a little better bat.
That that profile is, I mean,
That's
and
what
I
you
hate
want. All
it
right.
because Rich has it, but that now he's paying 24.6 million, but that is ideal right there
That's what you want. I'm
for
with you.
how I try like, and that's why if I have somebody like a Marcelo Mayer in my system, I'm not trading him for the life of me. Like
Right.
you could not give me enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you.
There you go, another
This is
one.
old Dodger. And this is kind of
And,
I let him go figuring that I forget what he got contract wise, but around there. Um, 14 million or so. Oh,
well, 15.8.
see it, yeah.
But that
Oh, you know what I wanted to
and,
do? I'm sorry. This is where I wanted to go. So when he jumped up to this 15 is when I let him go. I knew that was going to be the case. And to me, I was just being cheap. And I don't remember if I might not have been able to afford it. But I was ignorant and I looked at this as like, this dude can't really hit. Meanwhile,
but
I'm just a dummy.
no, so that like that profile is what I was talking about when I first joined the online league. The guy that was experienced told me you want to look at eye discipline, avoid case, gap power, and contact all being 55 or
Mm-hmm.
higher,
Mm-hmm.
and that is like Luis Renjifo for like 3 years was the guy that had that, and he in every league he was in, he got Luis Renjifo because he was the 1 or 2 hitter, got on base and just wreaked havoc on the base paths.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think the former Tampa Bay owner Keegan here for years had Andrelton Fitzsimmons or Andrelton Simmons, and the dude was just a monster, war
Yeah.
wise and all that stuff. And at first, when I looked at him, I was like, when he drafted him, I was surprised that he didn't go for a more offensive, guy. But it made sense now that I know what I know.
And you telling me that this was done by a draft and you evened out the finances makes
Mhm.
more sense why a Tampa Bay can afford 47 million for
Right.
Franco.
Yeah. Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of the leagues that I'm in don't even out the finances, and
Yeah.
that's
Correct.
part of the lure that I have
Yep.
with the small market, because you have to kind of,
Work
you
for
know,
it.
compete and work for it. So when you succeed, you have a higher accomplishment. At least I do,
Yep.
when it works out.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and that's where, like I said, live and learn a little bit, and now I know that people don't mind being in small markets. I'd be curious to see if we started all over how we'd do it. But
Well, there's always 24, and you're a great commissioner. I said, if you ever start a league, I'll sign up.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I think I'm maxed right now, but there may be an opening soon. As I'm not sure one league's going to hold on. That I'm not a commissioner in, but I'm always curious to, like, what happens if I trim it down a little bit, and I can't speak because trimming down to 6 compared to what you're 18,
Yeah.
very
Well,
vastly
I
different.
need to trim down.
Yeah.
Again, I did it because I was in pharmaceutical sales. I am in pharmaceutical sales. So
Yeah.
during COVID, especially the medical industry, I couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So my time was spent on relearning everything I already knew, going through that, and then having all the time in the world to do OOTP. And I'm loyal, and I hate to drop leagues,
Yeah.
because
I
especially
feel
good
you.
ones. So I just keep adding every time there's a new iteration of OOTP.
Yep. Yep. It's hard to say no, right?
It's hard to say no.
Yeah.
Now I have dropped a few, but in the meantime, I've gained a few.
Yeah.
But I was also going through a nasty divorce, and I honestly, and why I have a soft spot for OOTP and good leagues is, there were a couple of guys that I would reach out to that literally helped me through my divorce.
Nah,
So
it's great, man. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's what's so cool. So the original iteration of this was just a couple friends trying to piece together, as you might have heard before. And then one of the things I've really come to enjoy is the community, right? And I'm not always as involved in some of the chat in any league as much as I will eventually see it, and part of that is timing, and I don't want to take away necessarily if I'm hanging out with family, try not to abuse it. I still do fantasy leagues and things like that. But, it was one of the reasons why I wanted to try to come up with this idea, because it is a sense of, community, and there is, fun that can be added with that, whatever it is, rivalry or, camaraderie. And so, yeah, I'm just happy that anyone else even had any interest in it.
yep.
Yeah. But what I was going to show real quick, just prepare yourself before we before we take a look here. You were talking about perfect profiles. Now there we go. Right.
Yeah, that I mean,
That's why he
now
gets
at
paid the big
$42 million
bucks. Yeah,
dollars,
exactly. Yeah,
that
yeah,
that's and I was talking about the Heim Bloom aspect in real life to the Red Sox just doesn't work. I am probably him in the OOTP.
yeah.
Like, I
Okay,
don't like
I
to
got you.
trade.
Yeah,
I don't like to spend, especially with someone who's over 30. I feel like I've been bit in the bud too many times from people who are in their over 30, and then I'll spend $28 million on them, have one, maybe 2 good years, and then they fall off a cliff.
yeah. I can understand. I'm
But I
I'm
have to beat
definitely
out the Dodgers and the Red Sox and every other team, and have to give them 5 years, because that's the only way I can get it.
right, right, right. Yeah, I definitely am conservative with all those things, as well. And so for me, being in on Lewis was unusual, but I'm trying to solve the NL West, before
Yep.
before it's too late. But take a look at your minors here real quick. So yeah, you have a couple guys. This guy, the Andy Shalfex in the GCL here,
And
second
he's my
rounder
second.
too. Wow.
Yeah, he's my second rounder. Like, and that's, again, that's where I kind of go with. the loyalty, the work ethic. I look at those type of guys in the
Yeah.
draft.
Yeah.
Now, I don't like to draft 18 or high schoolers,
Okay.
uh, especially in the first round. I will draft a college kid. I mean, that's around four. He has four pitches. That was what I
Yeah.
liked
Sorry. Go back to
about
yeah,
him.
Jaden Lenga. Yeah. Yeah. And this
Uh,
draft is pretty deep. This is probably our deepest draft we had.
and he has work ethic. So hopefully, in the next 4 years, he can get that splitter maybe up a little bit.
Yeah.
Have four solid pitches. So drafting is very important to me
Yeah. Yeah.
because I try and find those diamond in the roughs. And you can see two of them that you just pointed out right there, which are, I think, two of my highest ones.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. And I dig this guy. He's
This was
27.
my first pick of the league.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. Okay. Gotcha. 32nd overall too. Has he? And okay, he hasn't made it up yet either, huh?
No, so that's my biggest. So like, and this is where I look at the overall and the potential,
Yeah.
and I'm looking at stats, but I am still driven by what is your overall and potential when I try and bring somebody up,
Yeah.
because I've
Interesting.
brought people up and they're like, "What the hell are you doing? He's not ready yet."
Yeah.
Uh,
It's funny hearing that, right? Not to cut you off, but like just to add into it, because in one breath you say you're a stat guy and you go off that, and I respect that, and that's not usually where I come from, and I need to be more like that. And then in that sense, you're kind of more concerned about the the overall and potential and stuff like that. That's an interesting mix, right?
Well, yes. Now, the thing that worried me about Roundtree, and this is, I was tempted to bring him up at the beginning of May or June to Super Two and all that. But the thing that worried me the most was from 32 to 33 a year, he went up in ERA and his WHIP went up. Like,
Yeah,
so,
I got you.
like his rating should tell you something different, but in AAA, and we're not in the Pacific League where the ball goes out on like a little flick of the wrist, his ERA and his WHIP is going up.
Yeah, I could see that, but I mean, I think he's ready, man. We got. I mean, of course, it depends what stats you care about, but I know it's an old man stat to look at ERA. I still like it, but solid ERA. Yeah, his whip's high, no doubt, but keeps the ball in the park.
Yeah.
Obviously, I like to see a little difference between the walk and K ratio. Pretty high
Yeah.
BABIP, so still producing a solid WAR. But I like that he's an extreme ground baller, and
Yeah.
if we
Yeah.
go in.
And he'll probably be a September call up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you throw, there you go. Yeah. Right. Right. You throw Burning in, that high pressure role. Right. And then, Jones. Yeah. He's solid too. I like Tim Jones, your fifth starter.
But again, I mean, look at his ERA too.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And his
wonder,
WHIP is a 1.48.
yeah. All right. So I wonder if you move Burning into the pen, then you need another starter. So, Roundtree fills that gap. We bring him up from AAA. You have two other pitchers that are pretty much, let's see, Mike Hudson, 24-year-old, has only pitched 13 games in AAA. He looks like he's about cooked too, like in a good way, like almost ready to go. But I can see that the control is low, so that's
Control,
yeah. But at least he's there if you need him, injury or anything like that. And then we have 28-year-old Mike Feitner, and he has pitched. Okay, so
well,
he's
he was
been in the
up
majors. Yeah,
last year and he got absolutely shellacked.
interesting. Yeah, did you try him? You tried him in relief. He was good in relief, though.
Yeah, he was. I tried him as a
Yeah,
starter because I was needing it. Plus, his stamina is an 80.
yeah,
Uh, he has three solid pitches.
yeah.
When spring training came around, I want to say that he did not do well.
I got you. Right, right. I do like him as a. I mean, I get it. I would do the same thing. I would definitely start him and probably make him my swing man. You know,
Yeah.
especially if you're having those double headers and things like that. Did I put him? I didn't change him back here. Sorry.
You're good. One thing I'm noticing when you go through all these guys is I have a shitload of low work ethic intelligence
Do you?
and
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
happens. But I do think that with a little bit of that manipulation, we add pitch counts. Maybe you play a little bit with with
Will you do me a favor? Will you
yeah.
click on Chris Wesson?
Yes. Let me see something real
And
quick.
then
You have a couple
Joaquin.
guys coming back too.
Yeah, I do. I need to bring them up.
Yeah. I know Kaufman. I had Kaufman. This dude, I love this dude. I mean, probably tricky in so we're looking at Jared Zesbo, probably a little tricky with the fly ball in your
With the
park.
extreme fly ball, yeah.
Yeah. Um, and okay, and I'm sorry, who do you want me to look at in your lineups or pitching?
Uh, Look at Parega, the closer.
Yes. All right. So Joaquin Paraga,
Okay, so yeah, that's so he only has two pitches, which is why he's in the bullpen.
right?
Uh,
Makes sense. Yeah.
and then Wesson. We look at Chris Wesson.
Yeah. And he's a free agent this year, right? So you'll lose 17 million off your books. And Wesson, yeah,
Yeah,
wow,
so
okay.
his stamina has gone down
Holy,
since he's been in.
yeah. So you draft him at 28, first overall. And I love his top ratings there. The stuff, movement and control, 65, 70, 75. But it is
Yep.
interesting though, where he really only has like he has the forkball as an elite pitch, then he has the cutter and sinker kind of like get him over pitches. And I guess the changeup in there too. He's got like 2.5 pitches.
Yeah, but I feel like with the extreme ground ball, I needed him in Yankee
Yeah,
Stadium.
100%. I'm with you.
And for
Yeah.
2 years, he lived up to the bill. Just again, this year, for whatever reason, I got guys who just aren't doing what they've done
Yeah.
the previous 2 years.
I'd be thrilled with this guy in my bullpen, and that's where like again going by off of the ratings here, with his actual pitches, sinker, cutter, slider, changeup, forkball. I'm not saying I wouldn't look at them, but I think the other ratings are more important than those, and that's something I need to kind of remind myself sometimes, like you said, extreme ground baller in your ballpark, can hold runners great, all his, his high, the stuff movement and control ratings are fantastic. He's got a great personality. He's throwing 97, 99. What else could you ask for? I
Right.
guess you could ask for another pitch, but the fact of the matter is like, there's always going to be warts on, unless they're going to be Hall of Famers basically, so
Yeah.
I take him. But yeah, I would wonder. I might fiddle a little bit with that lineup, but I definitely think the pitch count. I definitely think I would play a little bit with your. Do you do daily lineups or do you?
I don't.
Okay,
I
got you.
don't.
Yeah, and that's fine. I didn't know how much you differ with your left hand lineups and your right hand lineups. Yeah, it looks like you play with them. So you got Hayes playing against lefties and
Yep.
some variations in there. Yeah, I love that. But I would maybe try like more of a defensive lineup in one slot and then fiddle with that pitching, especially as you get healthy there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I think you have a good squad. I can
I
see
feel
the
like I do
frustration.
too. And there's a lot of guys when you look at my payroll who are young and are like, I mean, I don't have that Giancarlo Stanton or that Aaron Judge that the Yankees normally do.
Yeah, and you got Joe Kelly too. Wow. Yeah, you have a good defense.
Yeah,
If you
he's injured, isn't he?
yeah, it looks like he's out for 3-4 months. Yeah. Right.
And
Yeah, you don't have
that's another center fielder. So
right. Yeah. You don't
um,
have the $42 million guy.
no, and you look at like Chris Short, like he's 25, he's down there. Eric Roundtree, I got him for the next 7 years.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I
I
love
got
that.
Perales for the next 8 or 6 years.
No, you don't.
Yeah, well, because I'm going to put him on the tray. You got
Yeah.
it. You got it. But what I'm saying is hopefully some of these now keep Brian Hayes. That's a perfect example of someone that I felt like I needed because the younger guys weren't ready. And I paid him, I had to go out 6 years on him because I was trying to outbid somebody else and or 5 years. And that's why I did the team option. But I still have two. I mean, I have this year and next year where I probably don't need them. I don't need them
Yeah. Yeah.
because the young guys came up quicker than what I anticipated. And his ratings, if you go to scouting, I believe they've gone down since I picked them up. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
see, so
62
like
to
I picked him
48.
up
Yeah.
and, he was up around, I think, 55 or somewhere. And ever since he's been on a steady decline
Yeah.
because he's getting older.
Yeah, right. Makes sense. Yeah, it's a tricky one, but he's another guy you might be able to shift to a competitor that's in desperate need of a third baseman. You have the depth there, which is actually probably my favorite thing about your team is that you have a lot I like that versatility. I like that Tampa Bay. I despise it for like fantasy baseball and
Yeah,
sometimes like going to a game or watching the game because I want to see ideally certain players I'm going to spend the time, but I do love that as like a GM. I love that like kind of Lego Mr. Potato Head building,
absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
I think you have that, and I think your pitching pretty solid here. I was looking at our second guy, Orlando Negron, 29-year-old righty.
Another perfect example, okay, and I don't mean to interrupt, but a
No,
perfect
no, yeah,
example of someone who has the ratings.
yeah,
He has the greens, the blues, all
yep,
that. But once he's been in the majors, and I think he may have gotten injured in 31 or 32, which is why he was down in AAA. He just his stats aren't there.
right, 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 right. Let's see. So we had, yeah, not
32.
too
He only has
bad.
a sinus infection, so
Yeah,
that didn't really do anything. But
yeah, yeah.
I
It's
don't know.
interesting.
But ever
So
since he was brought down, stupidly, maybe I put him down AAA, and that
he's
pissed him
pissed
off.
at you, right? Yeah,
Uh, he hasn't done. I mean, he hasn't really done much.
yeah, yeah. But I agree though. His ratings are solid. 55, 65, 60, and stuff. Movement control, great stamina, great hold runners. 3 solid pitches. Yeah, it's interesting. I've had guys like this. Matter of fact, I don't know how he is now, but I was always puzzled by. He's on the Padres. I think he actually got injured this year, so I don't know if his ratings have changed. But Cardoza, this guy, yeah, so his ratings were probably a little bit higher here, but I think in stuff, movement was always about that. And I get that, but I think he also had all pitches were blue at one point. Let me see if I can see the scouting there.
And
Um,
that, like, yeah, probably in 24, his stuff was all blue.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
but that's one of the things that I also went, like, if I'm the Yankees or if I'm the Red Sox, I'm looking for guys that have movement, and I think you and Rich were talking about
yeah, we
that.
were, yeah,
Uh, I feel like those ballparks you have to have movement. In San Francisco, the Diamondbacks, you need to have ground balls, but I don't think you need the movement necessarily because the ballparks are so much bigger.
Okay, I like that idea, and I'm definitely, and I mentioned this to Rich, and it's something that I've learned about myself over the past short period of time in OTP, but it takes a while to change your teams. But I definitely was just like I was most ignorant to gap power in. I shouldn't say I was. I am most ignorant to gap power in hitting, um, and at some point I was with I and in discipline in varying degrees. Movement has been like my kind of kryptonite in pitchers, and I've since changed that, knowing that ideally if I can get a minimum of 50, that's what I want. But this guy baffled me, and I'll leave him in a second. But when everything was really high and his bars were all blue, and there was no flaw necessarily outside of being extreme fly ball, lack of movement. I just never understood why he didn't live up to his potential, and it was frustrating, probably in the sense where you get with Negron. And yeah, those guys are tricky, but I love this pitching. His stuff, movement, and control is fantastic.
Yeah.
Let me see real quick. Take a look at your other guys here. Holden Laws is your third, 33-year-old lefty. Everything looks solid there. I mean, we got a little low in movement, I guess, but
Yep.
he can hold his own. And then we talked about Benny. We talked about Jones. Yeah, I mean, your team is solid. You have a tough division, man. And I feel like the Orioles and the Blue Jays have, I don't know, I haven't looked too deeply into the teams, but I feel like they have um underperformed, which only proves how much harder your division is, because if those guys are doing better than what they are now, that makes your job even harder. Yeah, it is kind of baffling, but I think maybe going through that pitching uh numbers for the pitching count and trying
Yep.
defense, I think you might be all right. You got
Yeah.
the
Well,
bats.
and I'm only 4 games out of the wild card, so there's still time.
That's true. That's true. And so we have one of my close friends who's new to OTP, Take Boston. He just said the other day, I must be doing something wrong because I was 4 games back and now I'm 13 and a half. So
Yeah. Yeah.
and we'll see. And I said, I'm always here, happy to help. And I'm trying not to smother, but still be close by for anything. So you might be able to catch him. And then Seattle is always an enigma that, I feel like they are always impressing me with, they come out of nowhere, but they're on a little down stretch at 2-8.
Yep.
Um,
Well, we are too.
yeah. And Texas right now, we don't even have a Texas GM. I've been hunting down and trying to find the perfect fit. And I've been managing them just as in terms of making sure that, their IL isn't, outdated, and, that I basically auto the team. So, but they're hanging in there. You know?
Yep.
And then of course, Twins are always tough. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting run. Uh, well, I know that we wanted to dig into more, and I know that there's plenty of places to go, and I've blabbed a whole bunch,
No,
but
no, no, you're good. You're good. This has been
before
fun.
sweet man, yeah. Anything that I missed, anything that you want to jump into, and again, we can always do it again, but I don't want to leave you like high and dry if we missed anything.
No, no, I think we hit on a lot of things. And I think, we came out with some hopefully good tidbits for other people to look at. And I'd be
Yeah,
interested to see, especially with the movement in larger ballparks versus small ballparks, how Rich and Mike may view those things. So I'll be
yeah,
interested to kind of get their feedback as to what they hear.
yeah, yeah,
Just in my experience, that's kind of what I've seen, that's worked well. But no, again, the Yankees were an enigma for me, because it's a large market and it's a team that was done by a draft. It wasn't
right. It wasn't their actual team. Yeah,
their actual team. And I did not realize until you just told me that all the finances were even when you started out. So that's interesting. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
And I haven't dug in, so I don't know how much they shift, but that
Maybe
was
home
the
runs. Good Lord.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I was curious about. Yeah, well, maybe one time, yeah, man, left-handed bats. That's what I was thinking when we are looking at your team, as far as who's a lefty in there, keep those
I only got
guys. And
two.
yeah, and you had a couple guys that were I mean, you have so much power. You definitely had guys that were strong against lefties. I remember Morissette was a little less. Um,
Yep.
but you have a couple guys in there that can really crush. Um, well, maybe one time, I know we didn't dig into the sliders per se, to go over them specifically, but maybe in the future there's been a couple of requests where we do like a round table or have a couple people on at the same time, and I'm always open to
Yeah.
whatever. This is so new, and I've thrown out there, maybe do at some point a draft recap or do a playoff preview or something like that. Maybe we convince Rich to come on and talk us through your sliders here if you haven't done it by that point. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he'd have a field day, and I'd
Yeah.
be interested to kind of see how he would do a few of these people.
Yeah, yeah. Sweet man. Well, I'm rooting for you. I love your interaction in the league, and I appreciate you, taking the team over and being involved and
Yeah.
venting your frustration when it comes out and applauding, your victories when it happens. But this was fun, man, and I don't want to end it, but family's going to beckon in a second.
No,
So
you're good. You're
yeah,
good.
I'm going to beat that clock, but dude, thank you so much, man. I'll catch you on the interwebs.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. Later, man.
Bye.